What's up? This is Justin, Mr. CMB. I am back with another video. Shout out to everybody who's liking, subscribing, and sharing that channel. You know about China, you know about AI, and this actually really affects your money. It's going to affect your financial future. It's going to affect your future, your family's future. So I decided to bring in one of the key experts on China and US relations and what's going on, who can tell you exactly what's really going on. So you're gonna wanna watch this interview. You're gonna wanna smash that like button, that subscribe button, that share button, and you're gonna wanna tell everybody about this video. And we're gonna get into the interview right now. Hi, Cyrus. Thanks for taking time out of your day for just speaking with me, and just I really appreciate your presence. How are you doing today?
My pleasure, Justin. Thank you so much for having me and being a guest on your show. Really excited for our chat.
Yeah, no problem. And now, you're an expert on China and obviously American relations. So obviously we got to talk about this Deepseek AI.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to know, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people want to know, like, how does this development, the adaptation of AI tech, such as Deepseek, influence the U.S. financial system, particularly in the areas of like market analysis, risk management, and regulatory compliance?
Sure. Yeah. Great question. So I think what I want to talk about Deepseek is what's incredible is the fact that China was able to do a lot more with a lot less. That's the key thing that we really need to take away from this. And I think what's really incredibly inspiring about this is that if you actually look at a lot of Silicon Valley's biggest tech investors, Mark Andreessen, for example, he's helped co-develop the very first web browser. His comments were, this is an open source gift. This is a gift from China to the world. Like, this is a really, pivotal moment in the development of AI. And, and again, I think that's a really, it's not a political statement. It's just more like, hey, look, I'm a tech guy, and what China's created here, we're all going to benefit from it. It really is. And no matter where you are in the world, not just US and China, but, this is open source. You can download it. You can run it locally. You can expand upon this language learning model. It's very, very amazing piece of tech. And I think what it really means for the American, we're talking about the financial industries and this, this also tech industries. What's really crazy here is that China is able to develop this on a budget of around $6 million. And, they have essentially said, we don't need these super highly inflated prices. It doesn't cost, hundreds of billions of dollars to create this. And I think it's going to create a cosmic shift in Silicon Valley, because unfortunately, you have so much of that industry is just, really overvalued. And it's also, these tech executives are on enormous contracts. I mean, all of these people are making millions and millions of dollars. And I think it really shows a lot about China and their ability to say, look, we can develop this technology for much cheaper. Like, why should it cost $100 billion? We can make it for millions, so there's no need to kind of inflate those prices so that all of our executives can make tons of money. If we can develop it for cheaper and we can give it to the world, let's do that. But I think it's also a big shift, and this is something you even heard President Trump say, that this should be a wake up call. And that's really what I want people to understand, is that China doesn't have access to the best microchips in the world. The United States sanctions them. They actively cut them off from those microchips, but China is able to use older microchips, use a larger quantity of them and repurpose them to basically perform at that high microchip level. So again, we have to give a lot of credit to China, their ability to innovate and their ability to really create something more with a lot less.
Right. So let me ask you this. So why is this important to the average American citizen? Because obviously this is, I know the value and why this story is extremely big. You do also too.
Right.
So, but why is this important for everyday average Americans that are out here day to day?
Yeah. Well, I think that's really good, because AI is going to be the future of our world. There's no doubt about it. I mean, we look at all industries, where AI is being used in. But I think I'm going to just say, for example, if you're an average American, you're listening to this and you're like, I don't care about DeepSeek. I don't care about ChatGPT and, US, China tech, et cetera. Well, the interesting thing with AI, one of the best industries that's being used for is really the development of medical research. So, for example, cures for cancer, and and really helping scientists find cures faster by doing all of this testing with artificial intelligence. That's something that's going to benefit every person, right? Everybody has knows somebody that's been affected by cancer. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is that the biotech industries in China and in the United States benefit as they've been working together for over 50 years. So, a lot of the medical advancements that we see in the United States come because of research from scientists in both the United States and China working together. And that's something that not a lot of Americans understand. The other thing that's really interesting is that even when an American company develops, so let's say a cancer research, or we've got this new breakthrough drug, they need to test that. They need to test that in a large amount of people. Well, the United States doesn't have enough people. For example, like we need to find, 5,000 people that have this rare disease. Well, maybe it's harder to find that in the United States, but in China with 1.4 billion people, it's a lot easier. So actually, a lot of these American drugs are actually tested in China. And a lot of people don't know that, that there's this huge collaboration between the countries, certainly in the science and the biotech industry. So I think when I look at AI, sure, it's going to help college students write their essays faster and better. And you might not think that's important. But when we go to things like medical and cancer research and, some of these bigger problems in society, that's the exciting part of AI that I think more people need to understand. And again, this is something that will benefit everybody.
Yeah. See, it's interesting you mentioned that. I did not know that a lot of medical testing was done in China. So I learned something today, like right now.
Yeah.
Now with, it seems like, this is just kind of like what I see. It seems like from an American standpoint, obviously me being American, you being American too, it seems like we kind of shy away of competitiveness. We always want a competitive edge. Obviously, when you're talking about business, you obviously want to, we believe in free market, which, obviously we have people like Peter Thiel, who obviously likes, things to be a monopoly.
Right.
But do you think from an American industry standpoint, or in these tech sectors, they just want to more so stagnate competition based on like what's been going on, or just historically?
Yeah, I definitely see this, not being a free market right now. I mean, the United States is kind of shifting away from that model. And I think, the free market and the ability for competitors to come in, that's what drives innovation. And I'll give you another interesting insight into China's, for example, the electric vehicle market. Chinese EVs dominate the industry. China dominates everything, from the actual battery itself. There's no other nation in the world that can make an EV battery other than China because of the technologies, because of the minerals, the processing, that requires Chinese technology. But you look at that actual EV industry, the reason why that has become so robust and has grown so fast is because of the local competition that we see within China. So for example, let's just say 100 EV companies start up. And there's a challenge between Beijing and Shanghai and Shenzhen and these bigger tech cities. They're all trying to develop these EV companies. Well, even within China, it's interesting because they're kind of stealing technology, they're poaching employees. It's a very cutthroat industry. And what happens is that a lot of these EV companies, they are not able to succeed. Actually, let's say 90% of them will fail within the first 2 years because the competition is just so intense on a domestic level. But what you have is the remaining 10% that it's like, wow, okay, these are 10 battlefield tested companies that have gone through, survived the fierce local competition, and now they're really established. They produce amazing products, and now they're able to really expand. And you look at something like a BYD, which is selling more electric vehicles than any other company in the world. I mean, they've sold millions and millions of vehicles. They're aggressively expanding all over the world, minus North America. We've obviously sanctioned them. We don't allow Chinese EVs in this market, but where it's not? Latin America, right? You look at Brazil, they have over 100 BYD stores, throughout Brazil already, and their sales have increased from 2023 to 24 was over 300% increase in BYD sales, because they're realizing, wow, like EV cars are great, and if we can get them great quality for a great price point, and that's where China is expanding a lot around the world. And so I think with the United States, I would say we need to really think about this, because competition is what drives innovation. And I think if we look at the space race between, the 1960s between the Russians or I should say the Soviet Union and the United States, we were not trying to go over to the Soviet Union and say, how do we stop their imports of tech? How do we cripple their space industry? No, we just said, we got to beat the Russians, right? Like, let's work harder. Let's work smarter. Like, let's go put in the overtime, right? Mamba mentality. Let's go work hard. And we've kind of shifted from that in the United States. Now I've seen Silicon Valley tech executives say, well, we're trying to whack China in the knee. We're trying to basically, stop their innovation.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, interesting reference, whacking in the knee, like a Tanya Harding approach. That's definitely not what you're going to do. And again, you don't put China in a corner. You cannot force China, a country where there's 10 times as many stem cell graduates as the United States. You want to bet against them for figuring out tech? I mean, Chinese guys and women. I mean, these are engineers. They're smart people. They can figure things out. And again, kind of going back to that thought of doing more with less. So again, I would like to see the United States remain competitive, embrace the free open market, and certainly learn. And I would like to see, how do we get joint ventures? How do we work with the Chinese? How do we, let's bring the Chinese EVs here. Let's build more factories in America, hire more Americans. Like let's do business with China and do something that we can all benefit from.
Right. I actually agree. Collaboration, I think, is always key, especially when you want the betterment of, a society.
Right.
Just shifting gears, I want to talk about BRI and the Belt and Road Initiative. So I just want to know, like, how does China's BRI impact the global economic landscape? Like, what are the risks, like the opportunities that it creates for the U.S. financial system and just like American businesses or business owners in general?
Well, I think to be honest, it's really more of a strategic move from China and kind of their key foreign policy position and it's been like that for over the last decade. Is the fact that it was early 2014 where Xi Jinping had gone to Kazakhstan, said, look, we're going to revise the old Silk Road, the trading road. We're going to call it One Belt, One Road. That's now been relabeled as the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. But what we've seen is 150 countries sign up from around the world, and they have been doing a tremendous amount of deals with China. Now, there's not as aggressive as before. For example, those first few years, there was a ton of money. I mean, billions and billions of dollars spent by China building infrastructure projects all over Africa, all over the Middle East, throughout Latin America. And you really see China influencing the world and building these and bringing really tangible assets to countries. I mean, it's quite amazing when you look at the continent of Africa. Obviously, many countries within Africa underdeveloped, not supported from Western countries. And what you see is, for example, I always say the United States is very good at providing aid, right? If there's a famine there, we're going to send water, we're going to send meals. That's great. I mean, that definitely helps. But it's almost like it's a Band-Aid. It's like we're going to help you obviously temporarily as you go through this difficult time. But what happens when you drink the water and you eat the meals? You're back to square one, right? How do we get out of this, right? Where China says, we're going to build you a road, we're going to build you an airport, we're going to build you a port. Now all of a sudden, with a road and better schools and better hospitals, okay, that's starting to change people's lives, and there's a tangible result, right? We've got an actual like we've actually got a physical building here that's gonna, we didn't have a hospital here before. Now we do. China built us a hospital, and that's going to help our local population. And now we've got a road. Now we've got an airport. Maybe we can start exporting things now, right? Because now we can actually get our products. We can put them on a truck, get them on a road, get them to an airport, and then ship them over to China where people will buy it. And that's how we can start doing business. So there's a pathway there of really being able to break that cycle, if you will, and actually hopefully have a better future than your past was. And so I think I look at it more from China's ability to really conduct more trade. And what we're seeing is we are seeing China's influence on the global stage really expand. I mean, it's expanded tremendously over the past decade. And I think what you're looking at in the United States is that we have a very closed mind view where we really look at kind of the international community. And I use the air quotes because we kind of look at, all right, that means Canada, our allies in Europe, Japan, Australia, New Zealand. Like that's the international community. But, largely the United States, we don't really look at Africa as, an ally. We don't look at them as, as the continent of Africa. We just kind of look at it as, I don't know, a problem to be solved, if you will. Whereas China says, hey, Africa, tremendous amount of resources. Like this is an opportunity. There's a tremendous opportunity in Africa, right? Same with Latin America, and so China has been very strategic in going to all the places where the United States is, essentially not there. And it is interesting when, you see BYD expanding aggressively in Brazil, and then U.S. politicians saying, well, we don't like China in Brazil. Why are the Chinese there? That's our backyard. Yeah. And it's like, well, first of all, it's not your backyard. It's an independent country. They can do whatever they want to do. Brazil's still quite far removed from, physical location. And, independent countries are going to trade. Trade is good. And, go talk to the Brazilians and what they think about the ability to buy a reliable, affordable, electric car, and how that's shifted their life. It's been amazing. And so again, it's I really like the Belt and Road Initiative. There's been a lot of positive developments, and it is really helped grow China's influence in the world, and it will continue to be a big part of the story moving forward.
Nice. Yeah. And it's interesting. I actually was in Brazil a couple months ago, and I saw like some of the Chinese influence there as far as just with the EVs. And
Yeah.
even a few years ago when they actually built the highway that connected one end of Jamaica to the next end of Jamaica, making transportation a lot faster. So that's interesting. It's really interesting to see that influence like really move all over the world.
Absolutely.
Now, the green energy leadership, can you just tell, like most Americans don't know what that is.
Right.
And how might the transition to green energy affect like their energy bills, transportation costs, access to technology? Like, why is that critical, and why is that even important? Like,
Yeah, I mean, great question. I mean, the thing that's interesting is you look at there's no doubt about it that global warming exists. I mean, it's we can tell the extreme weather that we've seen. I mean, look at the unfortunate travesty and the wildfires in California that just devastated that community. I mean, every year we see these monster storms. I mean, hurricanes. I mean, there's a lot of things that are really happening in this globe, and obviously our carbon output and the way that that basically what we've been doing for so long. I mean, it is severely impacting the future of our planet. And I think when you're looking at China, who has been one of the largest polluters in the world, but has, in the last 10 years, again, has shifted to becoming the leading producer of renewable energy. And so I think when you go to a city like Shenzhen, again, top four biggest cities in China, over 25 million population, their entire city, the buses are run on EVs. They have an entire, several thousand, public buses that are it's an entire EV fleet. I mean, you have taxis over there that are, driverless taxis that are EVs. Actually, 50% of the cars on the road in China are EVs, and it's going to only continue to increase. I mean, there will come a time in China where basically gas cars won't exist anymore. I mean, it will shift to all electric vehicles. Now, that's had a profound effect because you often hear that, for example, you often hear that, lost my train of thought there. Excuse me. You often hear that, China's heavily polluted, that it's so polluted that, the quality of life is not good, but that has shifted a lot. I mean, I was in China as early as 2007. And yes, there were days where the pollution was unbelievable. I mean, the smog and pollution was just literally toxic. I mean, it would, you would get sick by going outside. And that has shifted. You go to China today and the skies are much bluer. They're much cleaner. People are living longer. Interesting enough, the average life expectancy of a Chinese person is longer than an American right now. So I mean, that has shifted a lot. But I think it's quite amazing as well. Back in 2008, the United States led in solar panel production. There was actually a little town in Michigan, which, believe it or not, was kind of the global leader in producing, these solar panels, and all of that has shifted now to China. 99% of that industry is now produced in China. And again, so it's, why? Because they're able to do it at a bigger scale, at a better price, and really able to impact that. So again, I mean, how's that going to affect Americans? Well, I have solar power. I have solar panels here at my house in Las Vegas. And, that technology comes from China, and, they're affordable price, and I'm saving, my monthly bill before I switched to solar, like in the summertime, was over $1,000 a month here in Las Vegas. I mean, it was extremely expensive. Obviously, we're running the air conditioner every day. Vegas is extremely hot. That bill is now around $25 a month, that we pay, which is a tremendous savings. But so I'm all about the solar and the renewable energies, electric vehicles. I think it's a great thing. And when you go to China, you just see that they are dominating that.
Right. Okay. Well, last question. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but now as far as like U.S.-China trade tensions, for how do these trade tensions impact the prices of everyday goods, job security in key industries, also just like long-term economic prospects?
It's a great question because, one of the big things we've heard with Donald Trump is that, we are going to put tariffs on the Chinese, right? We're going to put 60% tariffs on all these goods from China. We're going to maybe put 100% tariffs on China. One thing with Donald Trump is very interesting is that he says a lot of things, and half the stuff's not true, half the stuff is kind of a projection. I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, I used to live in Canada for many years. My wife's Canadian. It's like, oh, we're taking over Canada, 51st state. I mean, it's not even a remote possibility that could even ever happen. I mean, that's just complete nonsense. So you kind of chalk that up as like, whatever, Trump being Trump.
Yeah.
It's a funny joke. We can make some internet memes on it. I mean, there's no chance that Canada would become the 51st state of the United States. But as far as tariffs, I mean, it's very simple how that works. If I've got a Stanley water bottle, not an endorsement, just a nice prop for our video here. I mean, this retails for $40, right? So, I mean, if this is made in China and you're going to put a 60% tariff on, well, don't forget who is going to be paying that tariff. Okay, I tell you, it's first of all, it's not the factories in China, and Stanley's not going to take that hit. You, the consumer, are going to be taking that hit. So now this is going to go up to $65, and that tariff passes on to you. So the interesting thing that people don't realize is that when Trump passed these tariffs, these initial tariffs back in 2018, hey, we're putting a 22% tariff on. That directly resulted in higher prices for U.S. consumers. If Donald Trump were to put a 60% tariff on all of this products from China imported into America, let's not forget that trade relationship is one of the biggest in the world. I mean, we're importing hundreds of billions of dollars from China every year. That's going to wreck the United States economy. I'll be very honest with that. Like people would be losing their mind at how many things, like, why is my Stanley with tax $70 now? This is insane. Like last year it was $40. Well, guess what? That's how tariffs work. So I think what you've seen already from Trump is already a scaling back where it's saying, we're thinking about 10% now. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, well, 10%, if it goes from $40 to $44, now all of a sudden that's kind of like inflation. I mean, everything in America is going up. It's not going to be that big of an issue. But, at the end of the day, I mean, trade is good. I always say, Americans, the United States, the life that we get to live in this country, it wouldn't be possible without trade with China. Right? And you look at all of the technology that we use and even some of the most common products. I mean, there's so much, coming from China. And again, my big message is, don't forget, it's American companies that are going to China to produce over there, right? It's not like the Chinese government has said, Stanley, you must come over to our country and manufacture your cups. No, I mean, you manufacture this in America, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. It's just you just can't compete with China in that manufacturing scale. And it's really the supply chain, the logistics, their ability to produce not as something as simple as a cup. Yes, these are made in China, but it's your iPhone. Why is Apple in China? Because they have amazing engineers, amazing toolers, people that can do the tooling required to make something as precise as an iPhone. That's not as easy to find in the United States. That's exactly what Tim Cook said. He said, if I'm looking for the most advancing tooling engineers that can do this iPhones, I would struggle to fill a classroom in the United States with people that could do that skill. In China, I could fill multiple football fields with them. That's the difference. And so I always like to reference that because I find that such a profound statement from the Apple CEO. And that's why Apple's in China. That's why your iPhones all come from China. They're manufactured in California, or designed in California, assembled in California, but they're certainly manufactured in China.
All right. Great. This was really great, Cyrus. I really appreciate your time. Definitely learned some things on my own listening to you. So, Cyrus, can you let people know where to find you at?
Absolutely. So if you just type in my name, Cyrus Jansen, on YouTube, that's my main thing that I focus most of my time on is my YouTube channel. So please come and follow me over there. We make lots of videos about China, geopolitics, lots of events around the world. But Justin, thank you so much for having me on your show, and I hope to see you in China one day.
Oh yeah, I'm being there this year. I'm getting there this year, so I'll be there.
Fantastic. You're gonna have a great time. And again, thank you for having me on your show.
No problem.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.